Welcome to Tweener Madness, the high-stakes startup showdown where 4 of the Triangle's most promising companies are battling it out for a $25,000 investment prize from the Triangle Tweener Fund. Each episode, our finalists will face tough questions from the selection committee, defending their business and making their case for why they deserve to move on to the championship round. With only 2 spots in the final, the pressure is on. This is the Fabulous 4, where only the sharpest startups will survive. Here's your host, general partner of the Triangle Tweener Fund, Scot Wingo.
Welcome to the Fabulous 4 of Tweener Madness, a matchup between Moxie and ZW. Our selection committee today, to my left, we have Mahadi Sridhar, Jan Davis, fresh from a trip from Africa, so she's got a lot of, we're talking about all kinds of cool animals in the breaks, and David Gartner. If you'd like to learn more about the selection committee, you can go to Tweener Talks or our YouTube channel and see Meet the Selection Committee videos where we've had 20-minute videos with everyone so you can hear their backgrounds and see what they're up to and what kinds of things they invest in today. Up first, we have Jessica Parker, CEO and co-founder of Moxie. Jessica, you ready? Feeling good? Ready for a pitch?
Feeling good. I'm ready.
Okay, if you're looking for the pitch, check out their episode from the round of 8. But here we're diving straight into the action. It's time for the selection committee's tough questions, and they don't hold back.
First off, thank you, Jessica. Great to hear your story and what you're building. I'd love to learn a little bit more about how Moxie is different than some of the other tools and tech-enabled platforms that are available right now to publishers and researchers. In my head, the first question that popped in is, why isn't Grammarly moving into this space and seizing this moment?
Yeah, that's a good question. So when we think about research writing in particular, there's 3 levels of the writing. There's complexity, which is the depth of your ideas. There's fluency, which is the flow and the logic and the cohesion of the writing based on specific research components. And then there's accuracy. So Grammarly is concerned with accuracy. We're tapping into, mostly it's around complexity and fluency. Accuracy is kind of low-hanging fruit for us now that we have generative AI. And in terms of where the corpus database comes in, which is Kimberly's expertise, is combining the generative AI with a corpus for empirical researchers. That is a much more specific market than the mass markets that you see being served by Grammarly. And because we're so workflow oriented, we're not about corrective feedback or generating the text for the user. We're a very different product than what they're providing and these other similar types of tools.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Jan, you're up.
Yep. I've listened to a couple of interesting Freakonomics podcasts about research that is twisted to match the theories of the researchers. Mm-hmm. Does Moxie address this at all?
Yes.
Could you talk a little bit about how it would address it?
Yeah, so when we think about research, so much of it is around interpretation, where the human has to interpret it, and then sometimes it can get inadvertently misconstrued or advertently misconstrued for the purpose of the bias. So what Moxie does through the NLP processing pipeline and leveraging that with generative AI is we can look at specific linguistic markers that are indicative of the need for a certain level of evidence. So going back to what we call the Porter and Jick letter that was used to spread misinformation about opioids. So what Moxie would do is in any of those 600 publications that had cited that letter, which was misinterpreted as a certain level of evidence that it wasn't, it was cited as like a randomized control trial or a systematic review, for example. If Moxie had been used, it would have flagged the linguistic markers used to cite that letter, to bring it to the awareness of the writer and all of the reviewers, to show that there was a misalignment, a mismatch between those linguistic markers and the level of evidence in that paper. But I think it's important to note that our goal is not to automate that decision-making by the researcher. Like at the research level, the intellectual autonomy is really important. So instead of just fixing it for them, where would then have to assume that we know their intention, we bring it to their awareness, and that is how we address it.
Thanks.
Cool. Dave, you guys have done a lot of investment in ed tech. You had the awesome Element 451 exit. Got any questions?
Yeah, good job, Jessica. I'm all about B2B productivity tools. And I guess my biggest concern that I'd like to hear your thoughts on is just, is this something that's going to naturally become part of the browser, part of generic AIs at some point? Like today, I can upload an article into various AIs, and I can say, tell me which of these are generally accepted facts and which statements are opinions, and which is a very interesting exercise. And I'm hoping you'll tell me that you have some proprietary data that you're training your AI on that's copyrighted or not available to the generally used AIs that are available today.
We do not, but that doesn't mean that we don't see a path there. So part of our roadmap is thinking about the ingestion of the data. So when we think about empirical research specifically, all empirical research disciplines, so it could be the physical sciences, the natural sciences, social sciences, life sciences, basically everything except the humanities. There are certain patterns in language that are specific to each discipline, but then there's common patterns across the disciplines. So right now we're looking at the common patterns across the disciplines because that's what we've been able to afford and roll out. In terms of moving towards like absolute precision and accuracy, you would want to move towards discipline-specific models that would require training and fine-tuning. But interesting, what we're seeing in the literature is that the amount of money that it takes to do that, right now it doesn't seem that it moves the needle enough in terms of accuracy and precision and reliability to justify the amount of training and technology spend involved in getting there. So the way we are currently looking at it, because we're very much human in the loop, we don't want to take the human's judgment and interpretation out of the equation. And we're trying to we're preventing it. So instead of creating something that identifies existing literature that's already been disseminated, we're not at that end of the pipeline. We're at the generating part of the pipeline where it's being produced. So we're trying to prevent it from getting to the point of dissemination and getting to an article. A tool that would look at an existing research would be a very different focus than what we are doing.
This is fun, round robin. Yeah. I'd love to double click into your go-to-market strategy. It seems like you have both users are finding you, but then you're also partnering with university systems and being able to support all of their researchers. How are people discovering you to date? And how do you make that tenfold to really grow exponentially?
Yeah, our main drivers of traffic to our site are our YouTube channel. So because have existing businesses and I know how to kind of build generation tools like lead magnets, I've built a YouTube channel before that drives traffic to my consulting business. So around 70 to 75% of the traffic that comes to our site is through our YouTube channel. So we're constantly putting out really high value content based on AI literacy and AI integration. And then we have lead magnets on our blog. So we have a lot of organic SEO. Because we came onto the scene so early in this process, our blog does really do well for us in terms of SEO. And so that's where a lot of the traffic is coming from. And then word of mouth. So what tends to happen is a student or a faculty member will come on. Well, I'll give a specific example. So just this week, we met with a researcher at Kentucky State. He's a faculty member. He found our YouTube channel. He then signed up for Moxie, loved it, and we had a meeting with him, and he has 150 students in his department that he wants to sign up. So we're seeing that happen on both sides, where then the student tells their faculty that they found something that has integrity, so it's not cheating, and then the faculty meets with us, and then they end up bringing their students on board.
I'm wondering, like a PhD student, would they buy this while they're working on their PhD and then stop using it? You know, when you get a grant, you do a study, your grant's gone, the study's gone. Are you going to have a lot of turnover for no fault of your own, just because it's the nature of research? And how would you deal with that? Because if your churn is above a certain point, it makes it incredibly hard to scale.
Yeah. No, these are very valid questions. I'll answer that one first because it's just top of mind.
Sorry, that was a lot.
Yeah, no, that's okay. That's okay. So PhD students in traditional brick and mortar PhD programs typically go on to get fellowships, postdocs, so they extend that time from maybe a 6 to 8 year PhD program, add on another 1 to 2 years with a postdoc, and then those folks typically go into some sort of research position, whether it be in academia or in industry. But the iterative process that they went through as a student just shifts. Instead of being a student, now they become the expert reviewer So oftentimes a researcher, like at my level, I might be at any given time reviewing articles for 6 different journals. If I'm in an academic position, I'm giving feedback to 10 to 15 students, and then I might have co-authors who I'm working with. So there's a lot of collaboration, and I might be working on 6 different research projects at any given time. And so the student LTV could obviously be, there's going to be an end to it if they're not going into some sort of research position afterwards. So there's a segment of the market who are more professional students who are getting a terminal degree and they're not going into research. That's always going to be a segment of the market. But in terms of the researchers who are lifetime researchers and they're serving multiple roles, that is where the bulk of the money is going to be made. And they'll always be bringing in fresh new writers because they get a new cohort in every semester. So we see that as helping replace the churn that will naturally happen from the students graduating.
Yeah, and the exceptionally, you talked about your co-founder and how she builds. Talk a little bit about that. And you introduced a phrase that I actually have already forgotten, but I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, corpus linguistics. So corpus is a database. So when you think about ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, their database is like the entire internet. That's their corpus. Our corpus is empirical research linguistic markers, and that isn't easy to build. And so Kimberly has built those before in her career. And so that gives us a bit of a moat. The other aspect of this doesn't lend itself toward a browser extension is that the average researcher uses 7 to 10 different tools and spends thousands of dollars a year on external support structures, such as the type of services my consulting business provides, and then just the tools you need for research. Our ultimate vision, several years down the road, is that all of that is happening under one roof, and that's not a browser extension.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Is there a workflow component to this? 'Cause it feels like that adds more and more. If your value prop isn't strong enough, what you do is if it's a nice to have and not a must have, you just keep stacking the nice to haves until it becomes a must have.
Yeah.
And it sounds like there's also a viral component to what you're doing that may help you a lot. And I would harp on that a little bit more when you're talking about your CAC and how it's going to stay low.
Yeah,
especially in the collaborative nature too of how the platform can continue to scale. I think that's like a really interesting component too.
Yeah, one of the sticky things is even if you're a PhD student, your work is in this platform, right? So I'm sure you'll let them get it out, but there's probably artifacts that aren't going to come with a PDF dump or something like that. So getting in the platform and getting those artifacts could be a sticky part of the situation.
Yeah, and beyond just the artifacts, like a library, it's the tracking across the artifacts and how they've changed over time. Like, for example, just this week, there's a student who I had who the last time I gave her feedback was in November. She has 2 other reviewers. I'm having to go manually look at all of those comments and then manually look at, has her language shifted in a core component? And it's like an hour of those repetitive manual tasks before I can even get to the meat of what I need to do. And then for the student on that end who's managing all of that from multiple people, including peer reviewers in the program, the Knowledge Hub becomes more than just a storage component. It helps them see those iterations across drafts and time.
Yeah, I think if we had time for a product demo, it would answer a lot of those questions.
Yeah, it's hard to explain.
So would there be any fear from a user, prospective user, about being able to extricate themselves if they decided they wanted to?
I mean, so with researchers, the fears right now, so for example, Microsoft did a huge deal with Taylor and Francis. Researchers are not happy, like their data is being sold. The fear right now is around data privacy, and so Moxie addresses that. We're a completely closed system. Nothing is shared with the LLM provider. We can't access any of their data. And we would want to allow them to download their work. We don't want to keep them on the platform if they need, for whatever reason, to download their work. So we want to facilitate any of those things that they would need, but especially like with research and academic use cases, there are compliance things that they have to think about at the university, the grant funding, the journal level. And we want to be able to give them those documents for transparency purposes. And that's increasingly being asked for is transparency. How are you leveraging AI for your work?
Why is now like the right moment for this platform to exist? Especially as we've seen with this new administration, a lot of funding grant funding, research funding is getting pulled. And so all of these departments and individuals are having an even harder time being able to access their data and things like that. So why is now the most important moment for Moxie to be in existence?
Just the rise of AI makes this need incredible. I mean, there are tools on the market that produce text that completely shift the meaning of the research. And we want to prevent that. And a lot of people, especially non-experts, don't realize what's happening, especially because it looks so polished and credible. I mean, Stanford released a tool called Storm that will write an entire lit review for you. We've analyzed it. Half the citations are not appropriate for the claim. It's conflating information. Like, it's the perfect time for a tool like this where we're protecting the integrity and the intellectual property of the researcher. There's other levels to that. I don't know if you want me to go into more depth, but yeah, that's one of it, is just the fact that it's AI. In terms of what's happening with research cuts, it's terrifying. Like, one of my biggest fears is that we're moving into a future where we don't have an expert pipeline and we're not able to innovate, that we're basing really important decisions based on limited or flawed data. I really hope that we can get through this period with this administration and come out the other side. And I just refuse to accept that we're going to moving into a future where those types of skills are not valued.
It could also be a great moment for your platform as well, just because you'll be able to highlight the flawed data. You'll be able to like nip it in the bud so it isn't circulated or referenced, 600 times in other documents and papers too. So again, to your point, maintaining integrity of the research that continues to be put out there.
Yeah.
A number of times you've alluded to your consulting practice, and I can see how that has proven to be a great marketing channel for you. How are you dividing your time between the consulting, your other responsibilities, and Moxie?
Whenever we raised from friends and family last year, I hired a CEO. I promoted someone internal who had been with me since day one to run my consulting practices. I spent an hour with her each day to just talk strategy, get up to speed. So I have about 5 hours a week there. And then in terms of teaching, that's not something I'm going to do much longer. It's been a great testing ground for Moxie, and my university licenses Moxie. But ultimately, it's not going to be sustainable as we move into this next phase.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Glad you understand that.
Yes. No, I do not want to sustain the level of work I've been taking on lately. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
All right, Dave, last question.
Dr. Jessica, when you're out pitching this to a researcher and they've said no, why did they say no? What reason did they give?
Usually misconceptions. The media has sensationalized what AI can do and cannot do. There's a lot of misinformation about it. So usually it's around fear of like, are you going to have my intellectual property and use it in a way that I don't consent to? The other is if it's an international user, they need a lower price point, and we've just accepted that like that is not our market right now. So the two major no's are around, I don't fully understand or trust that my data isn't being used, but once we show them and explain that it's a closed system, we typically get past that. The other major no is just around the price point.
All right. Thanks, Selection Committee. Thanks, Jessica.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you.
All right. Up next, we have ZW featuring Robert Fu, CEO and co-founder. Robert, you have 10 minutes. Are you ready?
Yes.
All right, let me start the timer and pitch.
Reminder, they already pitched in the round of 8, so you can go back and check out that episode. For now, since many of you have already heard that pitch, we're going to get right to the selection committee members' questions.
I want to commend you on focusing on value props. So often we're told what the tech is over and over again, and they never get around to a value prop. And you were very focused on, that. I always say the tech is just a necessary evil. If you sold green M&Ms that gave the same value prop, they would just buy your green M&Ms.
Exactly.
That said, I'm not a material science person. And so your claims are great. If all those claims are true, it sounds like you have a business. The problem is I didn't understand enough of the product to give it those claims credibility. And it's probably my lack of a material science background. But can you tell me a little bit more? What is a model? And what's happening? Is this a mathematical model so you're looking to take these raw materials and end up with this raw product, and it does the analysis of the material science and comes up with how much you need of each thing and baking time and all? Is that what a model is?
Yes. So let me just give you very simple analogy so you understand that.
Okay.
Well, I give you this example. This is a Gorilla Glass. This is really real one that we actually were using our AI model to help them improve this product. So if you see that there are a lot of marks on the surface, what that means is the hardness of the material is not enough. Okay, so how you really solve these problems? We basically integrate all of their current and historical material compositions. You probably talk about more than 10,000 compositions together. And using AI and machine learning to narrow down probably last five compositions, then they only need to study and do experiment for this 5. So it basically accelerates their new product development much faster. So that's basically what Apple did. So if you say that the value proposition for the customer, this is the one, very tangible, you can tell. And then the other ones in manufacturing. So you're right that we use these very deep neural network to come up optimal operation control window for their process. So therefore, when they use that, they can automatically reduce their energy consumptions, cost reductions, and so on. That basically we talk about between 10 to 20% for each production line. So customers really like that. We give our first customer 2 recipes. They saved $500,000 for energy savings and $3.5 million for their throughput.
Then you're not charging enough.
Yeah.
The first, this is also our strategy. You're right that probably after we got 10 more, after we got more than 10 customers, we start to charge normally. And you also want to give customers some incentive because those customers also give us feedback and so on to improve our product.
So my question was about revenue. What was your revenue run rate?
And one way you talk about, so we talk about about $10,000 per month, and also our runway is about $5,000.
Okay,
None of our founders take pennies from that, and we basically also invested our own money in that at the beginning, and but right now it's just kind of we're probably just out of the deepest hole. But it's not our whole yet. The whole thing yet. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes, absolutely. The one thought on your pricing, it's a lot harder to raise prices than it is to offer discounts. So strong suggestion that your list price be multiples of what you're charging and just offer discounts to these early customers for feedback.
Yes, very good.
Yes,
very good.
Because I'm very concerned about your ability to extract enough value.
Yeah.
So totally different question. I assume you are using a standard database of information about chemical reactions and about glass and ceramics. When you are working with a specific customer, are their results then reincorporated into that database, or do they maintain ownership of the inventions that they make based on your feedback?
Excellent question. As a matter of fact, we do not use the general database.
Okay.
All our AI model is specifically customized with the customer's data. So their operating data or their material database. So whatever they can offer to us, we will use. So because we do all this kind of work on customers' computer server, they have any issues to share anything with us.
Good, thank you.
I would love to double click a little bit more into pricing. I saw that you have 3 different products that you offer.
That's right.
Is the pricing per seat for each of those products or for them collectively?
No, for each of them.
For each of them.
Right.
Okay.
ZAI will charge $5,000. And the other 2, because we think that right now it's basically more for small companies and each individual scientists, engineers, therefore we charge less.
Got
and
it.
then for large companies like Corning and Saint-Gobain, we typically offer a multi-user license. Let's say we offer them like $500,000, we give you 5,000 seats.
Got it.
And for small companies like Z FastQ to generate instant quotation, each company, they have one seat, but they will love it. And I basically point out that there are about 13,000 of companies. So if even you take 1% of that, it's a huge revenue you can generate.
Yeah, definitely. And there seems to be like opportunity to expand the ACV as you increase the number of products that are offered or the number of seats per customer. Is there a particular product right now that is most popular amongst your customers?
So I would say probably spread a little bit even because for the small customers, the individual customers, they like to have the Z FastQ and also we'll say ZMAP. But for the solving like manufacturing problems and R&D big problems, they have to use the total solution, which actually we combine the large language model with the deep learning neural network. So I saw that David actually talk about the small language model. As a matter of fact, when we really use large language model, we have a very big advantage, but we tailor that to something that is very specific for this customer using RAG, using prompt engineering and fine tuning. Sorry, I just add that.
All good.
So if you say that if you have a preferred products, it's just these three products actually focus on different users. But as a matter of fact, ZMAP and ZAI is combined together. It's one product. We just spin off that. The front end of the ZAI is ZMAP.
So talk about the evolution of how you came up. I think that's good to hear that. So kind of say that the evolution of you started with ZAI and
exactly. We start from
backwards.
ZAI and eventually we found that a lot of customers just like the front end of ZAI. So we just spin off that. So it doesn't really give us a lot of more effort.
Got it. Cool. Thank you.
But it's different from you just go use these Gemini and ChatGPT or whatever they talk about, the DeepSeek. Any of this are not secure for the companies. All of these things we offered actually is under AWS is completely secure, and we customize for the customers using customers' data, even for large language model.
This problem used to be solved using macros, big macros in Excel spreadsheets and things like that. What is different here? Is I guess, what's the substitute for this? If they don't use your product, are they using these rules tables in big spreadsheets to do
Excellent.
this?
So if you look at this, superficially, this looks like similar to Excel sheet, right? So Excel sheet's background, if you're talking about math, is statistics. When you use statistics, the number of variables you can deal with is about 10. But manufacturing problems, R&D in the materials and so on, typically is greater than 200. These traditional tools, when you ask this very good question, traditional tools cannot deal with that.
So this is very similar to life science, where you're looking at all the different ways a molecule can come together, and there's 10,000 combinations.
Here you go. So just like if you like to invent a new biodrugs for cancer, right? You got 1 million of candidates. How you can select that to last 10, so you can put your effort to study that. For material compositions, it's very, very similar. The only difference is that we don't need to go through the FDA approval. So this is a very similar process, exactly. And so behind the scene, we got the deep neural network, which can easily handle more than 500 variables. And we live with this kind of world for 30 years, so we understand what customers need, and such kind of problems right now cannot be solved without deep learning.
Could you talk a little bit about your sales and marketing process today and what your plan is to scale?
Yeah, so that's an excellent question. This is basically the part that is a weak part to us, and we do have a significant sales and marketing experience. The problem is that right now we only used our key contact right now because we have been in the industry for a long time. So we reach out to about like 50 to 100 companies. We have access to their C-suite decision makers. And then the other part is that we attend the trade shows, as I said, very limited exposure. And we, every couple of weeks I send these advertisements through LinkedIn. And we have our website. So those are the things we know is very limited. The part of the reasons that we cannot really afford to do the advertisement in Google, and we cannot afford to run like a booth even. So I know I'm not really asking you guys to say, hey, this is the time to pay off. So just to say this is a challenge to us. And without really getting funding, we are still trying everything we can to overcome that, because probably every startup company need to overcome this anyway. And of course, if we can get some support from you, even like say $10,000, $25,000 is extremely helpful, because we can really run the two booths for two trade shows. Every time we spend like $6,000. So that's basically the challenge we're facing. So, and.
At least for now, the plan is for the founders to sell.
Yes, we're selling. So this software can be sold. So we think can be sold through our website. So we offer this. If you check that, right now we offer 7-day free trial. So if scientists would like to get in, they can try by themselves. Mm-hmm. The rest, this tool need to customize and need to interface with the customers. So we have to give them a demo, explain to them.
Yeah. And you have to have a method to drive people to your website.
Yes,
so that they'll
exactly. So I basically every week, if I posted the advertisement in LinkedIn, which is free to me, I select more than 80 groups. I can submit it to probably 20, and I do get significant response. Typically 2,000, and then probably we will get 2 or 3 people, come to our website to try. So that's basically the way that we're doing right now. Mm-hmm. It's not effective, we know that. This is our challenge.
Yep. How often in your sales conversations do you have to educate the customer on the benefits of AI? Manufacturing at large is a legacy industry and pretty slow to adopt technology. So how often do you have to sort of move up that mountain?
Very good. So when we have a first meeting, typically what we do is that this is our basically marketing process. Once we connect with CEO of some company or CTO of the company, so we got these survey questions, typically take 5 minutes for them to fill in. We send them. So they will say that if your problem is R&D, or your problems is the yield or cost or CO2 or energy and so on. Once they list that, they come back, we know that how we should tailor our PPT to present to them. So once you get to that point, we are aligned with the customers. When you have these first meeting, they immediately get attention to this. We don't typically go through very deep explanations for them how this thing works, but we tell them what we can deliver to you, how long it takes to deliver to you, and then we give them our track record. So this is 1, 2, 3 customers and so on. So clearly that this business needs trust. Mm-hmm. Especially the C-suite people, they have to really trust you in order to give you business. And that's the reason first 50 to 100 companies we're right now engaging has this kind of trust with us. Of course, it's not enough. You also need to really have something else. And you have to really come at the right time, in the right position. So they say that at the beginning of this year, my company, OI, just have set up the goal and to reduce the CO2 by 10%. We come to the right time.
Other than this is your subject matter expertise, what's limiting you to glass and ceramics? Why wouldn't you do this across all the material science disciplines?
Excellent. Actually, in our mind, we will. So there's polymers, and there's specialty chemicals. So all the advanced. At the beginning, I did put that, and I really think Scott and other our advisors give us this advice that at the beginning, just narrow down.
Last question. Where does 100K get you? What's the inflection point that 100K would get you to that what's that, where's the point that's going to get you and why?
So what we think is a 100K investment will give us to generate another 100K revenue and potential to go more than that. So right now, it's just kind of like my partner and I, even when we travel, when we fly and so on, we have to consider, we basically pay our own travel fee, not charge the company. We does that. And there are 3 or 4 conferences all invited from glass ceramics companies. They all invited us to give a panel discussions. We drive there. I mean, it's just, probably sometimes 15, 20 hours. We do that, right? But still you need to pay all these kind of things and so on. It's a cumulative significant, right? So that, to answer your questions, this is basically, I'm not using this as a reason to say, hey, you guys, please give me money. No, it's not, because I just think that this is every startup company's challenge. So we're not exceptional. We will get to the point that you guys feel that, hey, those guys is worth of me to put money in, write a check, and you do that. And otherwise we will still keep doing this.
Thank you.
We call that founder mode.
What is that?
We call it founder mode.
Okay.
Driving 15 hours to go to a trade show.
Because Scott also told me that
mode.
when he started his company, he did not have money to run the booth. He said, well, just go there, one by one to sell. That's my spirit, right? I just add one more thing that 35 years ago when I came to the United States, I had 2 luggage and $60 in my pocket. So that always be my route. So if I can live with that, I can overcome all these kind of challenges.
Okay, selection committee, now comes the hard part. And I always like to tell viewers and listeners, this is what's hard. You have 2 very different companies, so it's not like shades of the same color. You've got 2 very different companies here. We've got a material science AI thing, and then a helping researchers also with, I guess they do share an AI commonality. Almost every company now has to have that. So tell us your thoughts based on the presentation. Mahadi, we'll start with you. What, Moxie ZW, what were some of the things you saw in there that were interesting?
Yeah, what I loved about both of the businesses was that they're already in market. They have some traction under their belt. They've learned something from their initial customers who have been using the platform. I think both of them have a little bit more to grow, especially around go-to-market. And that's where, I'd want to spend a little bit more time with the founders and understanding exactly how this becomes scalable, exactly how they're able to have this be an out-of-box product without having a tremendous amount of customization or implementation support. And sort of like what it would take in terms of investment or talent acquisition on their team side to be able to really build this business to be able to go from 0 to 1 to 10 and beyond that.
Jan, thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with you, Mahadi. They're both really interesting businesses. They both have some interesting potential. I can see an easier path for Moxie to get to a hands-off signing up customers.
Like a self-service product,
self-service
right?
product.
Yeah, same.
And I'm concerned about that for ZW, that is a stretch for them to be able to get there. But they both have identified real problems. They both founders and founding teams have real expertise in addressing those problems. And as you say, they're both in the market and have demonstrated delivering value to their customer bases. So that's good. I think Jessica's obviously a more polished presenter. I thought her presentation was clearer and more complete, but Roger's enthusiasm and passion certainly came through.
Totally.
Cool. I get this founder question all the time, like, when am I through product market fit? Do you guys feel like these companies are through product market fit?
No.
No? Okay. What would they have said where you would have said yes?
They've seen some pattern matching with the types of customers that they're able to bring in the door and the customers that are finding them. Right. And they can clearly articulate that a university, for example, let's take Moxie, a university that has X number of researchers and Y amount of budget is the right type of ICP for us to chase. And we can typically close that kind of customer in 3 to 6 months.
Okay.
On the ZW side, it's okay. We talked a lot about how there's different products that cater to different customer sizes. And it's like, okay, well, a small manufacturer, local manufacturer is probably good for the AI personal assistant. And the pricing tool, whereas the large-scale manufacturers, with X number of employees or Y number of budget are better for this, and really de-risking a little bit more of what that sales and implementation timeline looks like.
Gotcha. So they're not starting at zero, but they're not quite there yet. Jan,
Right.
Jan, any signals you look for?
Generally, I would say that companies that have some virality, and so I think that Moxie's a little closer. They're further along as proving product market fit because they've got customers who are bringing in other customers.
Yeah.
I love that.
It's also, I think, a bit of their business model too,
It is
right?
part of
The
their
collaborative
business.
nature of it.
Yes. But that says to me that they're further along toward product market fit than ZW is.
Yeah, I'm less comfortable with the B2C. I do like the virality. I'm concerned about their price points, and I'm concerned about their customer retention.
Yep.
And if ZW can get anywhere close to the value that they say they can, which you could figure that out by just interviewing some customers over the next couple of months, they could be charging tens of thousands of dollars for that product, and you've got fewer sales, longer customer retention. I like deep IP. I guess it's just a bias of mine.
Makes it stickier.
And it may be that I don't understand the Moxie IP. It doesn't click for me as well as the ZW IP does. I get that.
Well, what's interesting is they both create very, very, very niche models. They train a model. I don't think that may have come across on the Moxie piece, but they do. They go in and they look at oncology, and they train a model on oncology. And then,
That's
that research area.
corpus
That's that corpus linguistic thingy. and then they go and, as they go into a different super, what would seem like a niche, they train a model on it. Whereas Robert ZW's company is doing the same thing, but on material science. Yeah. So it is interesting. This is a common theme we're seeing in companies right now. This kind of like an entrepreneur that's really deep subject matter expert, some data they can train a model on, and then retrieval augmented generation and agentic and some of these things. So they share that in commonality, oddly enough.
My bias is towards fewer customers, larger checks.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there is a way, a lot of times you think in B2B and B2C that, you can't have virility in B2C. Well, you can have it in so it's easy to see it in B2C. It's harder to see it in B2B, but so for example, Robert's company could have a thing where a material scientist to get other people in to collaborate has almost a similar virility, but I don't think they're quite there yet in the product development. So a famous example of that is like Dropbox and some of the file sharing companies where to kind of get into the network, it pulled you in a B2B context.
Yeah.
And I think, again, my biggest concern with Moxie is just being disintermediated. I am, without being trained on some proprietary data that isn't available to generic LLMs, there's just a high risk there, I think, of having generic AIs getting good enough that her product isn't substantially better to the point that people would pay an additional fee for it. There were a lot of businesses that went under back when the browsers started just incorporating. They were like, oh, that's a good idea. And the next release, it was built into the browser. And that's going to happen over and over and over again. I bet you 70% of the AI businesses I'm seeing today are going to get sucked into the browser and given away for free.
Yeah. I mean, even things like TweetDeck. Remember TweetDeck?
Oh, yeah.
For managing.
Yeah, tweets,
Yeah.
Hey, when I bought my first word processor, I had to go to another company and buy my spell checker. You remember that?
Yeah.
But Grammarly still exists, oddly
Yeah.
enough. Okay, so now we're at the moment of truth, and we typically go alphabetical by last name. And Jan, that puts you up first.
Oh,
So the thought experiment is you have to invest in one of these two companies.
Yep.
And, this is pre-seed, so you've got to triangulate on all the things of which is going to potentially deliver the most return. for your LPs?
I would invest $25K in Moxie.
All right. Good. Thanks. Dave, you're up next. G. G for Gardner.
I always feel naked making these decisions without talking to customers or doing code reviews. But if I had to put money down now, it would probably be with ZW, just because I think that the price points can support a direct sale, which is a very cost-effective way of selling. He may run out of those LinkedIn groups. I've seen people run out of LinkedIn groups really fast. And then all of a sudden your CAC goes up by, 40 times. And so they both could be successful. I mean, I'd put money into either one of them, I think, is a reasonable bet after some diligence. But if I had to say right now, I'm leaning slightly more towards ZW.
All right.
I have a tough job.
You're the tiebreaker.
I know. I'm in the hot seat.
Yeah, this is the few times being in the back of the alphabet benefits us.
I know. Oh, man. So I really appreciate what Moxie's building. For me, I see tremendous promise, especially in the collaborative nature and being able to leverage the universities and research institutions as a one-to-many resale or partnership opportunity. I do, though, worry about the defensibility in the long term, and I think there's a lot more for me to learn there. When I think about ZW, I see a tremendous amount of opportunity as they expand horizontally outside of the glass space. And I think that especially given their connections into the industry right now, they can really prove a strong value prop and then continue to expand, laterally from there. Definitely need to improve the amount of pricing that they're able to get, especially as they apparently, save their customers so much money. And also polish a little bit more on how they're thinking about growth. But if I had to pick today, I think both. But I would do ZW just because I think the opportunity is much larger on a grander scale if you're able to really tap in and hone into it.
Got it. Awesome. Well, thanks, guys. This is why we make the big bucks.
We hope to make the big
I say that
bucks.
jokingly because we're basically volunteering to do it. So congratulations to ZW for moving on to the championship, and Moxie did a great job. I think these are super hard decisions, and when you get into this level, I've been really pleased by the competition, because if we just kind of randomly took some things, usually when you see pitch events, you get such a wide diversity of quality.
Totally.
Quality for this has been really kind of tight around the bullseye. So it's been a real fun competition in that regards. Thanks for your time. We appreciate it, and stay dry out there.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And just like that, another company moves one step closer to a $25,000 investment from the Triangle Tweener Fund. The competition is heating up. Who will rise, who will fall, and who will claim the ultimate prize? This episode was edited and produced by Walk West. Want to follow more of the action? Visit tweenermadness.com and follow us on social media for updates, behind-the-scenes content, and more.